Gage Investigative. Let's jump in.
All right. How's everybody doing on this Thursday night? Welcome to my Facebook folks and welcome to the YouTube family. My name is 12 Gage. Welcome to my channel, 12 Gage Investigative. You know, this Idaho case is just up and down, and there's a lot of people talking about it. A lot of people talking about different aspects, different avenues. I hope that you guys enjoyed the presentation that I'm about to give you. You know, I know that there's certain things that we all want to talk about, and I've been listening to a lot of people over the last couple of days talking about different avenues of this case and declaring this and declaring that. But you know, this isn't the trial. This is just the beginning of the document drops. So let me say hello to some people that are in here. It looks like Typically Unique was in here at one point. Jeff was in here. Rondi. Southwest Firefly. Leslie and Billy. Bullets and Bling. Alex is in here. Hey, how's it going, Alex? How are you? PKC, you're right on time. Anyways, I hope you guys liked the new intro. I thought it was pretty snazzy myself. Can't take credit for it, but I had some input on it. So hope y'all enjoyed that. I want to go ahead and start off right off the bat. Talking about some of the things that I'm going to be talking about tonight. And this is the video that I'm going to begin showing. Here we go.
We are learning more about the murders of 4 University of Idaho students in their off-campus house. Prosecutors say accused killer Bryan Kohberger disguised himself in a mask showing only his eyes. As Jim Array reports, that could end up being the smoking gun in the case.
Bryan Kohberger, accused of murdering 4 University of Idaho students, purchased a black mask that prosecutors say is identical to the one used by the killer. Prosecutors say Kohberger bought a mask like this one, known as a balaclava, from a Dick's Sporting Goods in Pittsburgh 10 months before the murders. And look.
Okay, so 10 months before the murders, Mr. Kohberger bought a balaclava. Hope I said that correctly. But anyways, nonetheless, there's been individuals that say that that's a weak piece of evidence, that it doesn't say anything where he lived at, you know, it's cold, runners use this, you know, all that wonderful stuff that people say when they don't want to admit that this could possibly be a piece of evidence against the individual that is now sitting in jail 2 years and some change. So here we go.
When you put it on, it covers the entire face, except for the eyes and the eyebrows. Eyewitness Dylan Mortensen says she saw a man in a similar mask in the house the night of the murders.
She sees the killer passing by, a man dressed in black, a black mask up to his nose with bushy eyebrows, as she describes him, about 5'10", athletic, and she's frozen in shock.
Dylan drew this sketch of the mask for investigators. Prosecutors say this selfie of Kohberger, taken 6 hours after the murders, shows the bushy eyebrows.
Bryan Kohberger.
And that's another thing as well. You know, people act like these coincidences happen all the time. How is it where one person who doesn't even know this individual would be able to draw the black mask like she was able to draw? People say, well, the police put that in her mind. They talked to her about the eyebrows. They talked about the black mask. They did this, that, and the other. Well, it's interesting how at the 911 call and even the text messages that we've been shown, Dylan was talking about these things even before she was interviewed by the police. Do people forget what they see, what they hear? She was talking to Bethany while in the house about the man with the black mask. But yet, when she mentions it to the police, all of a sudden, it's a conspiracy. The police put her up to it. They're the ones that put that information in her mind. What do y'all think, chat? Do you think that she was capable of identifying this, or do you think the police did put this in her mindset?
Prosecutors also want to introduce into evidence a paper from his criminology course at DeSales University in Pennsylvania. Was it a blueprint for a murder spree? The 12-page essay titled Crime Scene Scenario Final is a how-to for handling a crime scene involving a 35-year-old woman who'd been stabbed to death in her home. The bruises on her face, the marks on her neck should be photographed. Does she have defensive wounds? Are there hesitation marks related to the knife? Or are there multiple stab wounds, he wrote. Prosecutor.
Well, that's interesting because I had to write one of those papers just this last semester. And they give you a scenario. And you do have to go throughout the whole process. And I think I'm going to have to write another one on my last two classes that I'm going to have to do. And I'm going to have to use all the information that I've learned in order to decipher the crime scene. Well, isn't it interesting that he chose a 35-year-old woman to stab? Talk about defensive wounds. Talk about the wounds. Let's rewind that because that was quite interesting. Let me rewind that a little bit. There it says, are there hesitation marks related to the knife or are there multiple wounds? Does she have defensive wounds? The bruises on her face, the marks on her neck. Should be photographed. Wouldn't that be interesting if he documented this crime either by photographs or by even videotaping this? Because early on in the crime, early on, there were people that were talking about possibly the intruder documenting the crime. And I know that they were using it in a scenario where it is totally different than what I'm talking about right now, but they still were talking about it possibly being documented by the intruder. What if Mr. Kohberger, or whoever the man was that entered this home and committed these crimes, documented these crimes with photographs? Didn't we hear that Kaylee had substantial bruises on her face? 54 to be exact, or was that from somebody's imagination? You know, that's what I don't like. We have another creator right now that's playing old tapes of a person that was one of the conspiracy persons that was talking about the 3 people or 5 people that were behind the 1112 house smoking weed. And that's where all this craziness gets started. Now, I can't even remember if the media talked about the bruises on her face or if it was just a stupid conspiracy that I picked up and somehow just implanted in my head. Can you guys clear that up for me? Can you clear that up for me? If she did have, if we know for certain she had bruises on her face. Here we go.
Two for handling a crime scene involving a 35-year-old woman who'd been stabbed to death in her home. The bruises on her face, the marks on her neck should be photographed. Does she have defensive wounds? Are there hesitation marks related to the knife? Or are there multiple stab wounds? He wrote. Prosecutors.
That's a good question, Rondi. That's a great question. Was that knife sharpener would he use as a blunt force object to hurt the person? It was a specific creator on YouTube. Okay, so it's never been verified if that was true or not, right? Okay. I never heard where 55 stab wound came from. It was reported that she was punched, choked, and stabbed. Yes, I remember that too, but I don't know. Okay, 10 to life. Right on, right on. Annie Elise, you're right. That's where I heard that. I knew I'd heard that. I knew I had heard that. I just couldn't remember where. And I don't know if that's true or not. I mean, it could be. It could be. But I don't see it in any of the paperwork that I've read so far.
Claimed the essay shows his detailed knowledge of police procedures and an obsession with murder.
Bryan Kohberger's background in criminology encouraged him, I believe, to try to commit the perfect crime.
Kohberger, whose trial is set for August, has pleaded not guilty.
Okay, and one thing that I want to clear up that I heard a couple creators talking about last night, Mr. Kohberger was a PhD student. He did not have his PhD yet. There was a couple creators last night that were talking about him having his PhD and was working toward another degree. He was not a PhD. He was working towards his PhD, which, if he's convicted, he will never be able to accomplish. Just a long line of a lot of college and a lot of things to not be able to complete them, which makes sense in the mind of an addict. You know, they're the short distance runner. They're not the long distance runner. Also wanted to show you all this the other night. Those of you that were in here when we were talking about the 8458 cell phone, I had made a statement where I was talking about a cell phone. And I wanted to show you guys because I'm all about showing people exactly what I'm talking about. I don't like to talk about stuff that I don't have proof of. Right here it says investigators found that the 8458 phone did connect to a cell phone tower that provides service to Moscow on November 14, 2022. But investigators do not believe the 8458 phone was in Moscow on that date. The 8458 phone has not connected to any towers that provide service to Moscow since that date. So, that goes to tell you that that cell phone never connected to that area again. Yeah, Mama, I've gone and thrown it all away. You're right. Over whatever he visualized being more important than being a doctor of criminology. You know, I was watching a little bit of the Interview Room, and I want to show you something else that I thought was quite interesting. Maybe it'll quit blowing my face up where I'm like, I'm all up in your grill. I thought this was quite interesting. I think Chris McDonough showed this a while ago on his Interview Room, and I think he was making reference to Bundy, Kohberger. Do you notice what both of them are doing in those photos? What are they doing? What are they doing? Anybody see a semblance in those photos? Not connecting to any Moscow towers since that day. Very interesting. If he was innocent, you'd think, being in criminology, he'd be over near the 1122 house gawking like any of us would. You're right. Trophy, I step minute. See him. I don't know what y'all see. Thumbs up. Y'all see the thumbs up? Bundy's doing it. Koberger's doing it. Maybe he wasn't doing anything else but emulating his copycat behavior. We'll know one day, right? We'll know one day. I thought that photo was interesting myself. It's like, look at that. Thumbs up, thumbs up. For once, I got to disagree, Jeff. I'm interested in criminology stuff. It never sounded like a good idea to go there. So, he's giving the thumbs up there, and he said it makes you sick. Well, this photo, and we talked about this a little while ago in one of my other lives where it showed him giving the thumbs up, at 10:31 on the morning after the murders. So if this individual was in his bathroom giving the thumbs up at 10:31 in the morning, do you really believe that he was sending this photo to his family? Do you believe he was sending it to someone who wanted to see him in a button-up shirt giving the thumbs up? Hey, Texas, how you doing? I was going to text you and ask you how the other night went. Chris caught the same thing, what looks like a bruise on the lower thumb. Yeah, somebody had said that in another channel. My zoom-in qualities are pretty efficient there. I'm shocked. Do y'all see the bruise, or what do y'all see there? Keep moving that photo. Okay. I know a lot of people have said that the knuckles looked a little whitish or even kind of bruised. And somebody said this might have been a bruise. But, I mean, those of us that played sports a lot, you got to remember, he was a boxer. He was taking boxing. So it would make sense if he had calluses on his knuckles. I mean, it really would. I'm not trying to burst anybody's bubble or be on one side or the other, but it would make sense if he did have bruises. It would. Because I mean, if you're hitting a heavy bag and you're doing all that stuff with your hands, it's gonna make a callus ridge along there because that's how you're taught to hit. I mean, honestly, I don't think the thumbs up is nothing more than just a coincidence, but it's an interesting coincidence at that. The most important part that we all should be focused on are these bad boys right here. Because I'm sure that's what Dylan saw, just like that. No hair, no nothing. Just that view right there. So, if she saw this would be all she saw. If he was technically wearing that balaclava. People have been tripped out over his eye color. I thought he had blue eyes. There he has brown eyes. You ever heard of contacts? Like, people getting colored contacts? You ever heard that? It is a thing. You can get some colored contacts that are non-prescription that you can put in your eyes to give your eyes a different color. Don't you think it would make sense that if the individual was trying to conceal his identity, that might be a theory? Be long ago, he's been doing it for a while. Yeah. Well, I'm not saying it's here and there or there, but I'm just saying that the lighting was not all that great. And you're right. You're right. Hey, Kim, how you doing? Hope the semester's doing you well. But once again, this is all that really is what the focus is in the whole thing. Just to show that the man did indeed have bushy eyebrows. That's all that photo's for. That's all it's for. Nothing more, nothing less. And I don't want to be one of those channels that try to nitpick every little detail, but I thought that was interesting because I saw it over there in the interview room and I thought, you know what, I'm going to show that. That's an interesting thing right there. I never even thought of that. But whoever thought of that over there in the interview room, kudos to you guys. But once again, that's the only thing that this photo is for, is these bad boys. Nothing more, nothing less. Do y'all agree or disagree? Tell me what you think about that. I thought that was quite interesting, to say the least. Yeah, that picture compared to American Psycho was whoa. Dylan never knew there was going to be a test the next morning. I'm thankful she remembered the little that she did. It helped. Definitely agree just about the bushy eyebrows. That's true. Yeah, he's using his left hand. People have said he's left-handed, but I don't know about all that. And especially being in the morning immediately after the homicides. You would think that if he had any bruises or any kind of injuries on his hands, they'd be, I don't know, like, have you ever gotten in a fight? Your whole hand is like red and, bruised. Yeah, odd. You're right. Eyebrows would be very hard to use to identify a criminal. Some people don't bruise at all. That's true. That's true. And that's why I'm talking about all this, because I'm not, there's other people that are going hardcore on one way or the other. And I know at one point I was going that hardcore, but I decided, you know what? What's the point? What's the point of getting up here and yelling and screaming? And as somebody told me one time, who am I trying to convince? That's true. I mean, I didn't look at it that way, but that's true. The way that I was going so hardcore, it's like, if I'm confident about what I'm saying, why am I trying to oversell it? And that's what I see. Some of the shows right now that are going on, that they're trying to oversell it. They're going back in time and they're trying to relive the crime, and they're trying to remind people exactly what all has been talked about, what all has been seen and heard, I mean, if you only see the eyebrows, you only see eyebrows. I just don't think that's a great description. Well, she saw one eyebrow in passing. You know what I mean? Like, in passing. It's not like she saw both of them. According to the paperwork, she only saw one, and it was bushy. So it's fair to say if one's bushy, then both of them are going to be bushy. You know what I mean? Also think the photo shows he does have emotion and smiles. Yes, indeed. I think he is right-handed. I thought so too, because I thought I saw him signing a piece of paper with the right hand and had a pen. Knuckles would show tissue damage if it was an altercation. What's interesting, none the least, my fists always swelled up, top, bottom, knuckles, and wrist. Mine did too. I'm going to read this right here. It says, comes now the state of Utah by and through the Latah County prosecuting attorney to submit the following reply to March 17, 2025. Defendant's response to state's motion in limine, neuropsychological and psychiatric evidence. The defendant, in his response to the state's motion in limine, has clarified that he has at least two separate purposes for the proposed evidence: to explain how the defendant appears before a jury, and to rebut what the defendant anticipates may be evidence from the state regarding suspicious, unusual, or other odd physical and social behavior. The defendant has now also included a declaration by Dr. Jeffrey Lewin regarding physical condition of the defendant. This is the first the state has heard of Dr. Lewin. He was not included in the defendant's guilt phase expert witness disclosure, nor does he appear to offer anything in rebuttal to proffered expert disclosures from the state. First, addressing the issue of the defendant's behaviors and appearance as they may be perceived by the jury, the defense offers no authority, statutory or otherwise, to allow him to present evidence purportedly explaining how he may appear or behave in front of a jury. The state is unaware of any such authority, while Idaho Code 18-207 does not allow for the admission of certain mental condition evidence. Not even that statute contemplates the defendant offering evidence of the defendant's behaviors and appearance, much less offering evidence before even the state's case in chief begins, or presumptively trying to follow the defendant's argument prior to jury selection beginning. Not only would this type of evidence be completely irrelevant and immaterial to the legal and factual issues in this case, whether the defendant committed 4 murders and burglary, it would more likely confuse the issues, mislead the jury, and play to the jury's sympathies. These purposes are prohibited by IRE 401.402 and 403. The state note that CJI 202 lists the evidence the jury is allowed to consider: sworn testimony of witnesses, exhibits which have been admitted into evidence, and facts to which the parties have stipulated. The defendant's demeanor and appearance are not included. So this seems to be a big deal for the defense because they're worried about how the jury is going to perceive his behavior or his demeanor. What do y'all think about that? Oh, okay. Kristen Bell also does the thumbs up in American Psycho, the raincoat scene. All right, cool. What do y'all think about that? Do you think that the jury really is going to have that much of a prejudicial input whether the individual looks a certain way or acts a certain way? What do y'all think about that? Well, it does to a point, but he's worried about that in front of the jury. And I'm wondering, and I'm asking you guys, what y'all think about that? Do you believe that a jury honestly would have that much impact on looking at a person's demeanor and appearance just sitting there? I mean, come on. Richard Ramirez sat there with a pentagram on his hand. He went into the court with sunglasses on, wild hair. Do you think that painted him any more of a potential to have committed those murders that he was accused of committing, or do you think that that played a role or not? What do y'all think? Okay. He is stoic and emotionless in court. It's not a good look. Differently, yes. Okay. I think that severity in the end outweighs, but it may better treatment. Appearances to the jury can be misleading sometimes. 12, I think they may take note during some of the exhibits. I think he looks serious in court. And you're right. If they do show some of the pictures of his upbringing or whatever, I mean, you can't delete, a look from photos. You can't. People have said in other videos, students, classmates, all this stuff, they've talked about his demeanor. They've talked about him being one way or the other. You can't win. Karen Reed gets roasted for smiling. You're right. But think about that. I found it interesting how they made Jodi Arias that often was seen looking like a very sexy, attractive young woman. At the trial, she looked like an old elementary school librarian. And that is so true, Jeff, because I've heard a lot of times also, I've seen some other cases, and I've heard an attorney tell a defendant, hey, you got some glasses? Put on some glasses. That makes you look smarter in the jury's eyes. You're bound to look a lot more of the PhD student than the person who could potentially murder these kids and burglarize the home. Well, it's true. It's true. And don't be shocked if you see him in some glasses. Come trial, and I want y'all to hear it here first. I'm going to speculate that Mr. Kohberger is going to be wearing some glasses, some trendy glasses. I'm going to call it right here, and it's going to be on tape here. Casey Anthony also dressed. Yes, I remember that as well. You're right, because it is a ploy to kind of distance yourself from your past to who you are, and it's also trying to give the jury, look, they've changed. They're not that same person. Look at Bundy. He was very intellectual. He even tried to plead own case, but in reality, he was a narcissistic monster who was master manipulator. Very good. Damn, 12. I was just about to say that. JB, welcome. Welcome. That's how OJ's team did with his house for the jury walkthrough. Marsha Clark has mentioned that many times in our interviews. Yep. Large enough frame to disguise the eyebrows. Those would be pretty big right there. Threaded eyebrows, glasses, and a smile. So what would y'all think if all of a sudden he started smiling while he was in the courtroom? Would y'all think differently? Would you think that he was gloating, or would you think, oh, this is all for show? I predict he'll have completely shaved eyebrows. All right, we got it here on film. We got it here. So if he comes in the courtroom with no facial hair whatsoever, Jeff called it. He'll probably have and buy something like a nice in return for making her rich. I mean, those glasses always turn the jury somehow. You've seen countless people that have been in the courtroom wearing glasses. The state note that CJ 202 lists the evidence a jury is allowed to consider: sworn testimony of witnesses, exhibits which have admitted into evidence, and facts to which the parties have stipulated. The defendant's demeanor and appearance are not included. That's what I just said. As stated above, the state is unaware of any authority that would allow the defendant to present evidence purportedly explaining how he may appear or behave in front of the jury. There is, however, a body of law regarding prosecutorial misconduct holding that a defendant's courtroom behavior off the witness stand was legally irrelevant to the question of his guilt of the crime charged, U.S. versus Schuler, and that was the case law. So this analysis further supports the conclusion that a defendant's appearance or behavior in front of a jury, at least when he is not testifying, is irrelevant and not evidence. That makes sense. Why would you hold that as evidence if the person's not testifying? He's just sitting there. He's not saying anything. He's not doing anything. So why would you consider that to be anything whatsoever other than the man is sitting there with his lawyers? Wouldn't be a good look to smile. It's a gruesome case. You're right. I mean, he could loosen up a little bit, don't you think? I think that people see what they want to mostly see close enough because it is a sight the times we are living in. Okay. Well, that first picture of him after he was arrested, that smirk looked like a duper delight. Okay. Gloating show of narcissistic trait, thinking he can win. You would be fighting in your mind about his nice look, but severity will outweigh it. Also, when the people are lying, the look fades. That's true. That's true. This will be known as a social media trial. You might be right. 12 gauge, do you mean glasses for the whole trial? I would say the whole thing, yeah. Or at least the opening statements. At least the first couple of days of it, yeah. I just emailed you a picture that answered the question, is BK left or right-handed? Thank you, Jeff. I think that's the picture that I'm thinking of as well, where he's signing something like paperwork or something, and he has like a blue jacket on. He's standing in front of like a laboratory equipment or something like that. You know what? I hope one day I can just erase all the information that I know about this case. Once the trial is over, I don't want to think about Idaho anymore. I don't want to think about Linda Lane. I don't want to think about Banfield. I don't want to think about the White Elantra. I don't want to think about any of that. I really don't. Thank you so much, Jeff. That is a recent picture. I appreciate that. Let me show the people in the stands. This is an intriguing photo. And there we go. That pretty much says it all, right? Good catch. Good catch. So it looks like the man is right-handed. Potatoes, yeah. So the man is right-handed. So, kind of like Melissa just said, if he were taking a selfie, that makes sense that the left hand would be up and the right hand would be taking the photo. Y'all are on it tonight. It's okay. I'm here to help you. Yeah. Evidence every day of the week and twice on Sundays, folks. There it is right there. The man is is right-handed. But if you look at his hands, I know this is a blurry picture, but I have here is the place where right there. And y'all didn't watch a single bit of that, did y'all? Did y'all even hear it? I'm so guilty when I do that. Okay, let's try this again.
The offense was committed while the defendant was under the influence of extreme mental or emotional disturbance. Clearly not something that's in Idaho's aggravating statute to consider. Whether or not the victim was a participant in the defendant's homicidal conduct or consented to the homicidal act. Whether or not.
So if you were a jury member, I'm going to fast forward it to where he's signing the paper. But if you were a jury, and I know this is far away for most of you, unless you're watching it on a big screen TV, him sitting right there, because this is the most recent view of him sitting in a courtroom, would you think he was creepy looking right there? I don't see creepy right there. I mean, his hair is gelled up, has a nice suit, nice tie. I don't see a lot of creepy. What do y'all think? Well, I'm glad you showed it because it does clear up a lot of stuff, you know? Does he sign it right before or after? Do you have the timestamp because I moved it?
Violation, any kind of constitutional violation.
We'll take the issue under advisement and issue.
Right.
To present this, concerned about that.
And
He did so under advice. He did so in writing. He did.
Expert conclusions.
Something that the court needs to take into.
Oh, well, y'all saw it. I can put it back up here. 114.19. Okay. Let me do that again. 114.19. Yeah, just mess with it. I don't know what. Here we go. Here we go.
A jury's ability to do those things when it's the only case that they're looking at. So I do think it's important to take into consideration the timing of where we're at now with the jury decision. The other thing is I just wanted to point out some of that mitigating language that I'd referenced in Tulepa that's in the statute that we don't have. Whether or not the offense was committed while the defendant was under the influence of extreme mental or emotional disturbance. Clearly not something that's in Idaho's aggravating statute to consider. Whether or not the victim was a participant in the defendant's homicidal conduct or consented to.
So y'all didn't answer my question. If you were the jury and you were seeing him right there, would you feel that his demeanor, you just saw him writing, you just saw him doing all that, what's his demeanor speak one way or the other to you guys? I saw that. 114.19. I got it. So would his demeanor indicate what this is trying to say in this document for you? Would you see him as being, like if you're looking at him from the jury box and he's sitting there with his lawyer, because this is the most recent, how would you wouldn't necessarily view him as one way or the other, would you? Not like the media had viewed him in prior avenues. And I'm trying to be open-minded here. I'm just asking you guys, what do you think? He does look normal, right? We're just trying to look at Brian to see if he does have any kind of prejudicial, unusual behavior or demeanor that the defense is trying to get that thrown out. If anyone paying attention to her defense's writing, prosecution is reading, Hitler looks like you're trying to stay awake. Yeah. So yeah, we figured out that he's right-handed. I would believe that if I was the jury, I was a member of the jury, and I was looking at him. Obviously, there's a difference in looking at him on TV, and there's a difference in looking at him in real life. I know that, you know that. But what this is alleging is the defendant is wanting this to support his request to offer explanation for what he believes the jury will perceive from his physical appearance and behaviors in court. So if you were looking at that right there, what would you perceive? What would you perceive? Dang, I hate that big old thing. I wish I could delete it. Grabbing papers with right hand. He also passed his driver's license. Yep, you're right. To have sat behind the court. Yeah, got some bushy eyebrows. So the continuance that this says, when the defendant opposed the state's request for an independent mental evaluation, the defendant tried to argue the Idaho Code 18-207 was limited to mental conditions as they relate to elements of the charged offense. The Idaho Supreme Court held otherwise. What is most important is Samuel does not stand for the proposition that expert or any other testimony regarding how a defendant may appear in front of a jury is admissible. The defendant's appearance and behaviors in front of a jury are not material or relevant. It appears that the defendant, despite his initial declaration that he does not intend to offer this evidence under Idaho Code 18-207, is now trying to claim that it is admissible under Idaho 18-207. The defendant asserts that the second purpose of the defendant's proffer of the mental condition evidence is to rebut anticipated state's evidence about how the defendant interacts with others, his personal hygiene habits, and so forth. At the onset, the state currently does not have any intention of offering evidence during the guilt phase of defendant's pattern of odd behaviors such as social miscues with coworkers, professors, students, and others, compulsive hand washing, etc. So we have heard that he does have compulsions of hand washing. You know, one of my grandmas used to do that on my dad's side. When she'd get really upset or angry, she'd go and start washing her hands fearlessly. I'm talking fearless. And I guess she was trying to calm down because she was so upset. But when I just read that, it took me to that. Do y'all know anybody who has the compulsion to wash their hands continuously? And there's a difference between singing the birthday song and washing your hands and doing it continuously where they almost turn red and bleed. Anybody know of anybody that does that? The state understands that if it were to offer such evidence in rebuttal, the defendant would likely be entitled to offer evidence that these behaviors stem from his OCD and ASD conditions as opposed to some nefarious purpose. Defendant argued that he has a developmental coordination disorder. That means it was not possible for him to commit these crimes because he lacked the necessary speed and coordination. But that is not what his neuropsychological evaluation found. The expert who conducted the evaluation, Dr. Orr, listed developmental coordination disorder under the title diagnosis for which Brian met criteria in the past. Dr. Orr clearly explained that motor problems have not impacted his functioning significantly in many years. So what do y'all think about that? I know that we have kind of a delay, so I have to wait for y'all to hear me and then answer and then go on. What do y'all think about that? The doctor that evaluated him said he did have these issues in the past, but not so much as of recent. What do y'all think about that statement? Mine did too, Dolphin. That's interesting right there. Yeah, there's a lot of individuals that do wash them. I'm a former hospital nurse, so I've done my fair share of hand washing. Not OCD, though. Last attempt to defend his part. He's grabbing at straws. Well, I mean, I just want to show. I feel like I need to see more of the doctor's exam results before I decide what I think of them. Okay, that's fair enough. But just gotta moisturize. You sound like somebody else I know. If OCD he would have a very hard time not doing that from habit. Very true. So I just wanted to read that because it does. I mean, like I told you guys earlier, I don't like to just speak stuff that I've heard. I want to see it for myself. I want to read it. I want to put on here and say, okay, well, this is what it says in the document. And I know I'm going to have people that are going to be like, well, can you believe everything you read? Well, this is a legal document, so there's consequences for lying in them, you know? So, yeah, I would be more apt to believe than not believe. So, he met criteria in the past. He clearly explained that motor problems had not impacted his functioning significantly in many years. Because he was a runner, right? To the extent defendant currently has any motor impairment, even according to his own expert, it affects only his fine motor dexterity and vulnerabilities in visual motor functions. So that could explain why he didn't see Dylan. I've always thought that. Maybe he didn't see her due to not having good eyesight in the dark. But I could be wrong. You know, we've talked so much about this case. I have tons and tons of videos on my page. It's interesting for me. I'm sitting here talking and I'm like, man, I've said this before. These people are going to be like, I've heard you before. Shut up already. You know? No, I'm just reciting what I feel is the truth, you know? My hands used to crack and bleed from all over washing, not OCD though. Waitress, bartender, cook, dishwashers, hands went through hell. That makes a lot of sense. There are consequences for lying in the docs, but Anne has said things and they were true at the time because she didn't have all the discovery. Yeah, that's the only time that you can say and not have any consequences. You're right about that. I think he had just what we see, a weirdo, wrong place and time, and here we are with the same weirdo looking creepy. or ADD, very low attention span. I know what you mean. My hands look so old anymore. Also thought he didn't see her either. I could have sworn that in his Kappa talks, Brian said his visual snow was more on the left side. Well, that would make sense. I mean, if he was going by Dylan's door, it would have been the left side. He wouldn't have been able to really see. Plus all the lighting and trying to get out of there. I mean, people, I keep repeating this, but people act like he would just barely walking at such a slow pace that he was almost in slow motion as he walked by her door. You know, you're right, Texas. I agree with that 100%. I agree with that 100%. Even though she said he saw her, I don't think he did. I don't think so either. I agree with you. Otherwise, why did he take Xana out and Ethan? Yeah, because they saw him probably, right? Jeff, I'll look at that another time. It says you want to scan it for viruses, so you might be trying to send me a malware. Where am I? Here we go. So the visual motor functions, I believe that was possibly why the Dylan thing went the way it went. The examples she uses for fine motor dexterity include when he had poor handwriting and trouble tying his shoes in the past. So, I mean, I've seen Salty show his driver's license, and if you've ever looked at the bottom where he signed his name, it is very, very scribbly, very childlike, I guess. But his father had the same kind of signature when you look at the receipts from what they took in from his home in Pennsylvania. If you look at the bottom where his father printed his name or signed his name, he had the same kind of writing as well. So I don't know if it's hereditary or not. You know, that's something to think about. Not that it has anything to do with the murders, because that's not what we're talking about right now. We're talking about the paperwork. You know what I mean? Yeah, I believe he just wanted to get the hell out of there. Who wouldn't? Who wouldn't? You know, it's like people talk about this like he was just strolling by slowly and just, you know, in slow motion, like a stick figure in slow motion. That man was booking it out of there, especially with all that gear he probably had on, the clothing, everything. I mean, bro was probably loaded down and was trying to get out of there as fast as possible. If he actually saw her, I think she would have said he jumped, froze, lunged for the door, and ran. Good evening, Salty. Good to see you in here. Thank you. You know, and that makes perfect sense. If you're really looking at this, you know, if you're really looking at him getting out of there as quick as he can and not walking slowly, all this adds up. It really does. But the poor handwriting, tying his shoes, I don't know. In the past, though, this was probably when he was younger, you know. She asserts he continued to have difficulty with manipulation of tools, even as an adult. But only per parent report. She also points to her observation during the examination that defendant moved his whole arm and repositioned his upper body slightly to manipulate the items effectively. So he was able to do it. Could that have been possibly why he wasn't very good at the fish place he worked at? Could that have made sense why he didn't really succeed as a fish filleter or whatever? Yeah, he probably couldn't wait to get out of those clothes. Probably weighted down with a bunch of sweat and everything else. It was when he was 4. Okay. Well, we're glad you did. We're glad you did. I imagine he was sweating his ass off in whatever he was wearing. I agree with you. I agree with you wholeheartedly. I know that, if he had on a bunch of stuff like that, he would have been drenched. But she also pointed that he was able to manipulate the items effectively, so he could do this. No reasonable juror could infer from these observations and a diagnosis that applied to defendant in the past that it was not possible for defendant to commit the crimes with which he is charged. Most tellingly, neither of the defendant's experts drew that any similar inference. Neither expert offers any opinion on whether any of the conditions made it more or less likely that he was physically capable of committing the crime charged. Thus, the expert opinion themselves are inadmissible during the guilt phase because they are not relevant to guilt. The defendant's attempt to stretch his expert's opinions beyond what they say is barred by Rule 403 as unfairly prejudicial, misleading to the jury, and a waste of time. Finally, it now appears that the defendant wants to offer evidence that his OCD and ASD are actually physical conditions as opposed to mental conditions. So he's changing it from physical to mental. As stated above, this is new, and the state is attempting to understand how this would be relevant or admissible. The state will note that not having this knowledge before, the state's motion in limine was not drafted to address it. Based on the above, the state asked the court to enter orders in limine as follows: prohibiting the defendant from offering evidence or purported explanations of how he may appear in front of a jury. This is irrelevant and immaterial, is most likely to appeal to the sympathies of the jury, to mislead and to cause confusion on the real issues of the case, which are whether or not the defendant is guilty of murder and burglary. That's true. I mean, that's all we really want in this case, is for the jury to determine, without all this other BS, whether the evidence shows he was more culpable of committing this than not. Well, thank you. Thank you. Can I give that this would be like if I was able to insert like firework going off, Southwest Firefly, this comment would get it right there. It would have fireworks and everything going off. Thank you so much for saying that. Thank you so much for saying that. Is there anything Ann won't throw up against the wall to see if it sticks? Well, at least they didn't bring up case law from the 1800s. Well, Jeff, I think that Kohberger is probably doing a lot of this himself. Well, this didn't work. Let's try this aspect. The physical didn't work. Let's try the mental. Okay, the mental didn't work. Let's try the spiritual, the religious. Y'all think Anna's trying to talk him into trying to get a plea deal? Can y'all answer that? That's a great question. You in the chat, please answer that. Do you think that Ann's talked him into trying to get a plea deal? That dog would absolutely be uncontrolled, chaotic variable. Salty said, probably. If not, why not? Probably not. I don't believe the prosecution's going to go with a plea. I do. Family friend would do it until his hand were raw. My mind just went somewhere else. Bullets. I'm going to have to leave that comment right there. I thought he couldn't now. The prosecution has to offer one before they can have a plea. She might be, but BK wants exoneration. You're right on that. She might have discussed it with him. I don't think she has. I think she's tried, but I think he thinks he can get out of this. It's a challenge for him. Too early. Her previous case didn't play until 2 or 3 weeks before trial. I don't think the state is willing to plea. I don't think so either. I think they want to go all the way with this. I think they want to go all the way. I mean, Bill's retiring after this, so it would only make sense that they go all the way out with one of the biggest cases he's ever tried. You know, the families have any say in the matter. We know that one family would probably say, hell no to the plea deal. She can request the plea, but the state has to offer. It's not going to happen. By now, LOL, F exoneration, let me out. You know, that's interesting, though. That's interesting that I like how y'all think. Reserving ruling on whether the defendant is entitled to offer rebuttal evidence of his mental condition to the extent that it might offer an alternative explanation to any state's evidence about the defendant's suspicious, unusual, or otherwise odd physical and social behaviors. Deny the defendant's introduction of the newly disclosed evidence regarding physical condition was not previously disclosed nor proffered as rebuttal or response to state's guilt phase expert disclosure, and which on its face did not appear to be relevant or material. And then it's signed, sealed, and delivered. What do y'all think about that one? I think that's pretty damn interesting. I strongly agree, 12 grades all the way. You can feel it, can't you? Pretty much. Pretty much. I mean, it's... And it just keeps rolling and keeps rolling and keeps rolling. So the more that we hear, the more that we get in these documents, it just continues to basically show everything that we didn't realize was going on behind the scenes. Ironically, her previous client, part of the evidence was dog hair. Wow. It's all on the air we watch on TV. Well, welcome back. We missed you. So, I wanted to start to read another one, but I think Salty and I, as I was looking at it, Salty and I went over it the other night. It was talking about the cameras, and it was talking about the surveillance and stuff like that, and the detailed lines of where these cameras were. I wanted to really touch on that, on the disability, though. I wanted to touch on that, the dexterity of, saying, well, it's not physical now, it's mental. Okay. Before you were saying it could possibly be OCD and ASD. You said you had problems with coordination, you had problems with this, but the expert said you didn't have that lately, you had it when you were little. So the only issues that you really have are the eye thing and, something else. So it doesn't mean that you couldn't have committed these crimes. Okay, let's go with the mental aspect then. Let's see if that works. Rebecca, how are you doing? Thank you so much for that super sticker. Thank you so much for that. You always come through with those. Thank you so much for those. They are much appreciated. Hope you know that. Oh, the dogs are howling. I don't know if y'all hear those. I think he is some of ambidextrous, yeah? What do y'all think about the mask, the balaclava or whatever? What do y'all think about that? So if he had that on and it was covering, like I said in one of my early videos, I was trying to say that, let me see if I can find that video, because I hate to feel like I'm lying to you guys. Are y'all still cool with me right now, or y'all need to go somewhere? I got a little bit more time before I need to go work out, but in one of my videos, I was talking about how would Dylan be able to recognize this guy if all she saw was his bushy eyebrows and his nose. And so you don't think I'm a liar, I'm going to pull this up to you for you. Because your boy was a deep thinking back then. He was really into this. But over time I've done so many, I've lost steam, I guess. Because honestly, that's how my mind is. If I'm really interested in something, I deep dive into it, makes sense for me, and then I kind of just be like, it's all good. I'm over it. So I guess that's what happened to your boy. Let me see if I can find it. I know I'm wearing like an orange hoodie. So how are y'all doing out there? Y'all still with me? Because I know I hadn't went live yet. Not on that part. I was going crazy in these lives when I first started. Asked Jeff, he was like, "You're live again?" Yeah, just a little bored, Jeff. I will find this because I remember talking about that. Let me put some music on while I find this, and we're gonna take a break right quick. I'll be right back.
I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up. I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement. I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement.
Everything I do so instinctive and so passionate. Every word I move so descriptive like an adjective. I got a vendetta against people who patented being negative when you should be getting after it. I got facts over tracks, this and that. Spitting slow, spitting fast. I could roast, I could gas. Think I'm okay at last, but I don't know if that can erase all the past. And the pettiness, a reflection of the emptiness. Hilarious, you think you're worth my time, you're delirious. Mysterious, because you hide behind a fake exterior. Inferior, you know I'll always be a bit superior. Get off of me, this ain't no humble brag. I want you to hear words, you can say them back. I want you to feel free from the chains at last, and to believe in what you got, it was built to last, yeah. Now that I've been put through hell, I never got anyone's help. I had to do it all myself.
I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement. I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a
a statement. Gonna learn the consequence of being incompetent. Mental health is confidence, dreams and some honestness. I'm not here to save the day, that's for you to take away. I could play a million mind games, but instead I say something not illogical, something that is topical. Rub it on and watch it go, make yourself unstoppable. Dreams are irresponsible, but they're always possible. If you just believe, you could be so remarkable. Thoughts in my head, a collage and they spread. I'll be great one day, going off of my meds. No, I'm not giving up, no, I'm not giving in. I will make it to the top, taking off in the wind. I gotta make it, I'm saving every day to taste it. I'm patient, but my mind, it can hardly take it. I'm chasing a dream that I've had for several ages. A vacant, modern kingdom for the taking. Now that I've been put through hell, I never got anyone's help. I had to do it all myself. I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement. I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement.
I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up.
Whoa. All right, I'm back. I found the video. I don't know why I'm all yellow. What the hell? What happened? I take the orange shirt off and I go yellow. What the hell, bro? Here we go. If the individual that did this came out of the house, stripped down, had a wetsuit on, and then threw everything in the trunk and took off, as they say, or what is stated in the PCA. You know, this is an interesting theory because not only would he have everything covered up, the mesh on the bodysuit or the wetsuit would allow any DNA or skin cell to be dropped in the car. But I don't want to get into that aspect of it as much because I'm not a DNA specialist or anything of that nature. So I'm just strictly just brainstorming here. You know, I've been watching two relative cases that were in the past. One of them was the Gainesville Ripper, and the other one that I watched yesterday was a little bit about Ted Bundy. People stopped talking about it, so I figured, you know, they know more than I. Experiments with these at my office. With the GPS monitors, once you place them on an individual, they are tracked by satellites that ping the GPS monitor. And you would believe the guy to their death, no matter what individuals might think. As human beings, we are pretty passive when it comes to the death penalty a lot of times, but we have to do what we have to do when that law has been broken. So think about the patterns, the profile, the things that they gathered out of his apartment that have not been given to the public because of the gag order. Think about the video for that information I can't find it. And I don't even recall if it was a news station that supplied this information, but I remember them giving a diagram of the parallel view of that Ring camera and what it would capture. So if that is true, that Ring camera would have caught the Elantra heading up, around, and back down. It wouldn't have caught the one of him going around the Linda Lane apartment, but it would have caught him coming back down Queen Road. And it would be on the right side of the road, fairly close to that bush where they stated that there was individuals that started yelling at Kaylee once she got home from the ride share. Another unfounded theory. I remember this well, and I wonder if that's the Ring camera that Kaylee's sister used to look at to see exactly what time the rideshare driver dropped off her sister and Maddie. And maybe she saw the color of the vehicle, maybe she saw the individual. I mean, I don't know. I don't really. Ring cameras can be very grainy or they can be very clear. But at nighttime, you have all the deflecting lights, you have all those scenarios. You would probably pick up people talking, people yelling, that stuff going on. But the light bulb camera that is on 1112, I believe, I have never heard one of those light bulb cameras be referred as a Ring camera. Usually the Ring camera is something that's placed right outside your door that looks like a doorbell, It's very simplistic, one button. You can call, you can talk on your phone to whoever you see on the camera, this, that, and the other. So that's always stuck with me, and it's never really fared well, but people stopped talking about it, so I figured, they know more than I do, so I'm not going to bring a big deal of it. Another thing is the Elantra making all those passes around the Queen Road apartments. I was wondering, because of opportunity, if the perpetrator, I'm going to call him the perpetrator because whether I believe it's Brian or whether I believe it's not Brian, that's not here nor there. That's my opinion. And, it doesn't matter what I believe. I'm just giving the facts as I recall them and as I know about these things, Anyways, back to what I was saying is, as he was making his drives around Queen Road apartments, the opportunity, because that is one of the most basic things that law enforcement talks about as far as identifying somebody who's looking to commit a crime, is the opportunity. And what is the opportunity? Could he have been focused on another area other than the 1122 house? Could he have been looking at another target, potentially at the Queen Road apartments? Could he have been seeing what kind of layout, what kind of people were around, what would be the easiest way in and out? Because he supposedly stalked this house 12 times. 12 times. So he would have had the layout fairly easily, you would believe, and he'd understand the route in, the route out, potential targets of interruption, individuals that would potentially be a problem, which houses were partying later on in the night usually, what the patterns were of that street, what the patterns were of the houses around it, the apartments, and so on and so on. as you saw in most of the videos, especially the Banfield video, all those videos around there was a lot of activity going on. Even though it was stated it was a quiet night, there was a lot of activity going on. Therefore, for him to come and go do those passes around Queen Road Apartments, could it have been his car was malfunctioning? Could it have been his car was not really running correctly? You know, it could be anything. But let's get to the pings. I work placing GPS monitors on juveniles. And I'm not trying to say GPS is the same as the pings on a cell phone tower. I'm not an expert. I'm not even going into that avenue so deeply. But I do want to say this. With the GPS monitors, and we have done experiments with these at my office. With the GPS monitors, once you place them on an individual, they're tracked by satellites that ping the GPS monitor. Does not mean that I solved the case. All it means is I gave a new angle to a year-long and then some months of a case where everybody's talking about it. I hope you enjoyed some of the things that I talked about, and I know as time goes on, I'll be more factual. I'll give you dates and times and of this nature. But honestly, I don't have the time to put in that effort due to being a full-time student, having a full-time job. You know, I just got a call just now, being on call about a juvenile. So, I mean.
So I can't find that freaking part that I'm trying to, but it's in this video. The video is called Idaho 4. Let's talk about different areas of the case. And this was premiered January 13th, 2024. So if you go and watch this video, you're going to see the part where I mention Dylan talking, or where I mention my opinion on Dylan seeing the perpetrator just that much and not being able to describe who he's going to be, who he is. Like if the attorneys are asking, well, can you see the person in the courtroom? I can't stand that look on that camera there. Do you see the person in the courtroom? Well, unless they're going to put the balaclava on him, no. She's not going to be able to recognize him. There was a reason why she couldn't recognize him. You know? Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So, y'all go watch that video. Like I said, it's in my histories in the library, and it's one of the first ones. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting to believe that this individual did not do this based on what we've been told recently. That video that I just played you was January 13, 2024. So that was that long ago. And I was going on assumption that at that point in time, that's where my mind was in that video. And I was thinking to myself, well, how is Dylan going to be able to see and understand that this guy, who it is, if he's wearing a mask? All she can see is his eyes and his nose. And at that point, I was thinking, what color were the eyebrows? I wasn't thinking one eyebrow. I was thinking both eyebrows. What color were they? Was she able to see the color of his eyes? You know, I don't know what you mean by that, Melissa, but okay. But, it's interesting to me that what we've been told, what we're continuing to be told and hear, and all these documents and everything that's coming out, it's never about innocence or guilt anymore. It's about the evidence that's being presented. And it never was about innocence or guilt. That's not until the jury comes into the picture, which they haven't even been picked yet. So all this malarkey about innocence and guilt, it's just a smokescreen to have people side up on whatever side they believe the most. No other reason, No other reason. So, as I always say, if you take your emotions out of this, and you read these documents and you understand search warrants and you understand probable cause and you understand how all these things tie into each other, then you can understand the process and the protocol that people follow when they're trying to find a suspect who committed a crime, whether it be murder, whether it be rape, whether it be arson, whether it be any of those crimes. Then you understand it. Until then, all the speculating questions that people are asking, it's okay to want to know why. But most often than not, that answer you're looking for, that why question people continue to ask, or it doesn't make sense, make it make sense. How come this makes so little sense? All those questions, it's suspicious. The more you ask those questions and you deny yourself the ability to get the answers that you are looking for, it only makes sense you're never going to find them. It only makes sense you're never going to find those answers. And if you have a narrative that you're pumping and that you're feeding and that you fed for these 2 years and so much time, then that's all you're going to remember. That's all you're going to want to feel. That's all you're wanting to think. You're not looking outside the box. You're not looking for justice. You're looking for vindication and relevance. That's it. Because after this case, how many of these channels will still be around? How many of these channels really give as much energy to other cases that they've given this case? You can look around. There's other channels that do other things, and they also do this case quite well. But there's only channels that cover this case, and they talk about it. Every live they do, every upload, everything they do, it's about this case. They never talk about anything else. And if they do talk about it, they talk about it very briefly. They don't go into intimate details like they do with this case. They don't try to learn the people that are involved in the case. They don't try to learn the procedural aspects of the case. They just read or play a video and then give you their impression or commentary, and that's their rendition of the case. I wish I could get back to like I was at the very beginning, where I was deep diving into the procedural aspects of it. I guess I'm just keeping it to myself because along the line, many people just have attacked and berated. And to me, it's not really worth all that drama for a case that I have no fight in. You know what I'm saying? I do enjoy it. I do enjoy talking about it. I enjoy being with you guys in the chat more than anything. That is more enjoyable than discussing all this stuff, because to be fair, it was about the murder of 4 innocent individuals in the middle of the night while they were sleeping, doing nothing but living their life. And they were violated by a person who cared nothing about that innocence of that night and their boundaries or any of that. They're violated in so many ways. And these survivors have been put through the ringer for no reason at all. No reason at all. Kind of like I said earlier, that photo was put out there for no other reason than to show the morning after the murders he had that photo he took at 10:31, and his eyebrows were definitely bushy. That's the only reason they showed that. No other reason. But people have ran with every little aspect of that photo, trying to dissect the hell out of it. As we all have. I've done that. So I can't say I haven't. But you know what? I'm not going to do that on every aspect because it's futile. Every video, every photo, every little thing, it's futile. Because you can't really see what you're looking for. And if you could see it, it's probably not a clue. It's not an evidence. It's not evidence worth even talking about. You know what I mean? So I hope that you guys get interested in other cases, not necessarily the ones that have been watered down to death, but maybe some of the newer cases that are coming out. There's a lot of trials going on. There's a lot of cases with a lot of twists and turns, worse than this case. And there's a lot of innocent people that died at the hands of very bad people. And at the end, it doesn't matter how you were raised, whether you were raised in a great home or you were raised in a poor home. At a particular point, your consequences are your own. Your choices of life are your own. You can't blame this or that on how things turned out in life, because there's a lot of people that were born with less that turned out to be more and never murdered anybody, never committed any crimes. And there were people that were born with more and ultimately chose the other path and turned into murderers, rapists, and arsonists, and all these other things. So you just can't just put one person in a little box and say, well, this person's going to end up like this because of that. I suppose you can. But, you know, are you being fair to that individual? I don't believe so. But I hope that you look at some of these other cases as they come along and that you stay involved with true crime because it is intriguing. I understand the intriguingness of it all. The wanting to know, the asking the questions, making sure people are accountable, that there are no shady stuff going on behind the scenes. I get it all. But you also have to have some trust in humanity, something that we haven't had in a long time. And I'm trying to find the answer to that. I've even asked, you know, a lot of people, what makes people so violent in this day and age? How come the first word out of people's mouths is usually profanity and violence and slander and defamation and all this other stuff? How come it's that? And it's not about kindness or understanding or meeting people in the middle. How come it's not that anymore? And you can't tell me that that's outdated, because it's really not. Not everybody is violent. I get that. But there's a lot of people that are. So if you have hung on to your values, morals, and beliefs amidst all this craziness that you see on these YouTube streets, I commend you. Don't settle. Expect the best. Expect the best, not only from you, but from everybody around you. And don't settle for people's mediocrity or excuses. We all have a choice. None of us are without a choice. we're free to make the best choices we can make. And if we're not doing anything with those choices and all we're doing is making excuses, then we'll always be rooting for the underdog like many people do in this case, because they view him as an overcomer of his addiction, going through school, all this stuff. Well, how I could be walking in Brian's footsteps myself. I am an addict alcoholic. I have overcame. I put myself through college. I've gotten a licensure. I'm almost complete with my criminal justice degree. If I went out tonight and I murdered 4 people in their sleep, nothing that has happened to me in my life would equate me being innocent. One bit. That's the choice that I made. And if the evidence showed it without a reasonable doubt, then I would deserve the penalty that comes with it. So I hope that you enjoyed it tonight. I know it was a little off at times, but it's fun nonetheless. I hope y'all have a wonderful night. I'm going to show y'all my intro because I'm proud of it, and I hope you enjoyed it as well. Those people on Facebook, thank you so much for being here, and I hope to see y'all in the chat sometime soon. June 28th, would be the last day of school. Well, let me show y'all that intro again. And y'all have a wonderful night. After this, I'm going to have Maestro cue the music. I'll see y'all again soon.
This is 12 Gauge Investigative. Let's jump in.